The knock at the door. When I was 10, I moved in with my dad to a new neighborhood. I barely knew anyone except a family my dad was friends with, a single mom with 3 kids. One of them, a girl named Delaney, was a couple of years older than me. We weren't very close, but over time, we shared mutual friends. One night, my friend Rob was hanging out at Delaney's house with her younger brother. Their mom was at work, leaving them alone. While they were talking, there was a knock at the door. Thinking it was their mom, Delaney answered it. Rob, who wasn't supposed to be there, quickly bolted out the window and ran home. He never looked back. But it wasn't their mother. It was a woman, the mentally unstable sister of a lady their mom had been helping. She had learned the family schedule and had been waiting for the perfect moment. What happened next remains a nightmare. Delaney's younger brother managed to escape and call the police. But it was too late for Delaney. She was found brutally murdered, her body left in the bathtub, her head missing. They found it later, hidden among the Christmas presents. I wasn't allowed to attend her funeral. The woman in the dark. 15 years ago, my wife's grandmother had an unsettling encounter. She had lost her husband the year before and had taken up volunteering at the library to keep herself busy. One winter evening, after the library closed at 5 p.m., she declined a ride home from another volunteer, preferring to walk to stay in shape. It was only a mile through a lightly wooded area. But halfway home, she noticed someone behind her. A man. He was walking in the same direction, gradually gaining on her. As he got closer, a sense of dread crept over her. Eventually, he was so near she could feel his breath on her neck. Then, just 50 yards from her house, he grabbed her shoulder. "Don't turn around," he whispered. "Hand over your purse, or I'll cut you." Without hesitation, she took a single step forward, turned, and shot him in the neck with the .38 revolver she always carried. He collapsed. The man spent the next 5 years in a prison hospital before he died of complications. Even in her final years, she always regretted one thing. She wished she had pulled the trigger sooner. The white SUV. When I was a kid, my older sister would babysit me when our parents were out. She was a smoker, so she would go outside for a cigarette, and I'd usually follow her, just playing around. One day, she noticed a white SUV parked at the end of our driveway. Its windows were impossibly dark, so tinted you couldn't see inside. It sat there for a while, only driving away when she went back inside. But when she came out again, it returned. This happened again the next day, and the next. Eventually, she told my dad, a sheriff's deputy, who reported it. But when the police checked, the SUV was gone. For months, we didn't see it. Then, nearly a year later, it returned. This time, my sister decided she had enough. She started walking toward the car, determined to confront whoever was inside. But halfway down the driveway, she stopped, paralyzed with fear. "I knew if I took one more step, I was dead," she later told us. "I've never felt terror like that in my life." She turned and ran back inside. That night, our dad was home. When the SUV appeared again, I ran inside and told him. He grabbed his gun and walked toward it. As soon as they saw him, the SUV sped off, peeling onto the highway. The scariest part? The license plate was covered in duct tape. We never saw it again. The man under the bed. Minji, an English tutor in South Korea, had a terrifying experience that still haunts her. One night, she was tutoring a high school boy late into the evening. Since the buses had stopped running, he asked if he could crash on her floor for the night. She was hesitant but eventually agreed. They both fell asleep, Minji in her bed, the student on the floor. A few hours later, he shook her awake. "I'm really hungry," he whispered. "Let's go get something to eat." She groggily refused, but he was insistent. He begged her to come with him to a restaurant just down the street. Frustrated, she finally gave in. Once outside, he turned to her and said, "I'm not hungry." She froze. "I woke up and looked under your bed," he continued. "There's a man sleeping there." The police arrived and discovered a homeless man who had been secretly living in Minji's apartment for 2 months. The only reason the students saw him was because he had been sleeping on the floor. The ambush. I was driving alone through the desolate high desert near Amboy, California. The road was empty. Miles of nothingness. As I approached a canyon, I saw something blocking the road, a red Pontiac Fiero, a suitcase torn open, clothes scattered everywhere. In the middle of the road lay two bodies, a man and a woman, face down. I slowed down, gripping the steering wheel. Something didn't feel right. Being a Marine, I reached under my seat and grabbed my 9mm pistol. My instincts screamed at me, this was a setup. I studied the scene. There was just enough room to pass. I shifted into first gear, pressed the gas, and drove straight through. As I passed, I glanced in my rear-view mirror. The bodies sat up. From the tall grass on either side of the road, at least 20 people emerged. I slammed my foot on the gas and didn't stop until I hit the highway. I'll never know what would have happened if I had gotten out of my car. The watcher in the closet. Our next-door neighbor had a son, a deeply disturbed 19-year-old obsessed with slasher movies and stories from my time in Vietnam. But what disturbed me the most was his fixation on my 7-year-old daughter. He'd try to talk to her when she walked home from school. He'd lean over the fence, watching her play. But the final straw? He called our house asking to speak with her. I lost it. I went over, confronted his parents, and told him to stay the hell away. After that, things got even stranger. My daughter, who was always a bit imaginative, started saying there was something in her closet. She was too scared to get up at night, but insisted it was there. Then one night, while my wife and daughter were away, I woke up to a phone call. It was my neighbor. "We saw you were up," he said. "Our son is missing. Can you help us look?" I wasn't up. The house was dark. Then I saw it. A light was on in my daughter's room. I grabbed my shotgun and ran outside. A sheriff's car pulled up at the same time. As they entered, they found him. He was in my daughter's closet, waiting.